Good morning, everybody. So this is reserved for the scientists. I'm talking today as a patient, as a patient in an abstract room where somehow regulations are treating the patients in the field, and the patients are notified bodies, are device manufacturers, and I give you information about a long-term treatment of such a patient, namely a research structure and a company in a changing regulatory environment, and I tell you about somehow the treatment effects of these regulatory changes in the field. Okay, is this loud enough now? Okay, very good. And as a patient, I'd like to now first start by asking you to look into my eyes, and I just have to turn around to make sure that everyone is seeing my eyes, And my eyes are deeply European, slightly concerned, but mostly positive. And you should keep this in your mind, because at the end of my talk, you have to remember what I just said. You can forget about the rest. If you are sleepy or think it's not so interesting, don't worry. After the coffee break, I'm scheduled to give the very same talk again, unless, Antonia, you have changed the program. Find the mouse here. Okay, I start with a very brief overview about the other patients around the group in Munich. So we have organized an infrastructure over the years consisting of a company TUM Analysis Online with all the necessary people to keep a medical device on the market. Then we have an independent research center that started out as a multiple sclerosis big data base somehow. And we have a number of universities in Munich, and let's see if I can click now. So the problem is I don't see the here, okay, here it is. So that's the research center that is organizing yearly conferences, and many people also from in this audience have contributed here to the topics that are around computational medicine. We also have, it's a bit tricky, I have to say. We have universities in Munich, so there's the LMU in Munich, where we have a good collaboration with the obstetrics department, and also the Technical University of Munich. And they have, and this is an update from the last SPAM workshop, that they have managed now to build schools that are somehow embracing different faculties. And they have a school for computation, information, and technology, where we are linked to with a professorship. And we have the TUM School of Medicine and Health that is somehow covering this aspect. And so from that point of view, this is the structure we have in Munich to conduct our research and make the technological development. Now, very brief, the title of the talk again, Central Monitoring and Obstetrics Benefit Risk Analysis in or of MDR. So this is, I wasn't quite sure you could say, but this is covering both topics. So benefit risk analysis in MDR, but also of MDR, which is then the topic of the last 5 minutes. And here I'd like to ask someone 5 minutes before the supposed end of my talk, someone should warn me, and then I will potentially shift gears. Are you going to do this? Thank you. Okay, now the products that the company has, there are two things, and I focus on the obstetrics part, obviously. We have one thing called ActiBelt. This is a long-term monitoring device with multi-sensors in a belt buckle that sooner or later may merge with other sensors, and we have seen from NEMO that there's a lot of innovative stuff going on with sensor patches on the body. That is going to be a very interesting field, but today I'm going to focus on our product in obstetrics. And here, this is the fetal monitoring part, and maybe I start with the global presence. So we have, this is now 2 years old, these data, so about 400 installations of a central station worldwide in 27 countries, lots of languages. and we can estimate that more than 22 million times a CTG monitoring was applied to a woman with this device. And I will highlight the importance of these numbers as I go along. And GE Healthcare, I should say, is the distribution partner, so they are doing the sales and marketing and all that stuff, so we can concentrate on the device. Yeah, and okay, now I come to the, I'm sorry. I come to the history, and we will spend some time with this history slide because that is a patient history. Yeah? You should understand this is a patient journey if you think a group like us is a patient in a regulatory environment that is changing. So my background is physics and mathematics. I've done a PhD in the foundations of quantum mechanics, and all of a sudden, as a very arrogant mathematician physicist, I was hired as an anti-statistician into the medical world by my former head, Professor Nice, in the Institute for Medical Statistics and Epidemiology at the Technical University of Munich. At that time, they said, well, please, before publishing, think about patenting things. And so I started with collecting data in the hospital, in online monitoring settings, in a research setting that was founded by the German Science Foundation. Complete basic research, and then I committed the first crime. I invented things that could be patented, and the hospital administration treated me like a criminal. Yeah? How dare you to invent something? And there are no procedures in a university how to deal with this and how to handle this and so on. But finally, that worked, yeah, and I could also start a company then in the year 2000. Yeah. Now, going back in 1997, so a couple of months after I had started there, with this arrogant, not really to read the literature, well, I had invented an algorithm that was an algorithm to detect drifts and outliers in biosignals, and it turned out that, well, it is patentable and it was good. Yeah? We had a test bed with the obstetrics department, and when they spent time in our office, it turned out to be good if they could have a look into what's happening in the obstetrics ward. And at that time, well, internet was a kind of a fresh concept. We used browser technology to show them when they were in our office what is happening in the obstetrics ward, including our decision support algorithms that would analyze online the CTG traces. And at that time, we had the impression, well, there are lots of benefits and some risks. And now I tell you the benefits, but you will know them. Well, the benefit is you bring the key information for decision making to the obstetrician wherever they are, 24/7, using a technology where you do not need a local software installation. Yeah? Very good, yeah? Because, well, if you believe that the CTG information is important, well, then that you should not do harm by spreading this information. Yeah? At that time, I have to say, I did not know anything more deep about the field of obstetrics, the patient, if you wish, of the field of obstetrics, that there are Cochrane reviews saying, well, if you believe Cochrane is the best possible evidence about risk and benefits of a technology, you will find easily after a short Google search, well, it doesn't change much apart from having explosion of unneeded intervention like C-sections. Well, C-sections are linked to mortality risk, so you can calculate easily the number of deaths introduced after introducing CTG monitoring worldwide. Yeah? And well, at that time, I could say, well, it's not my fault. I have not introduced it. It was introduced without validation. I'm just doing introducing a procedure that people in the clinics, well, can access this information more easily. And an algorithm is helping them in the decision support. If something goes wrong and they're busy or sleepy or doing other things, well, they are reminded by an acoustic alarm or a visual alarm that something needs their attention. Yeah? And well, we did, and we also realized that there is a problem in obstetrics going back in time. Yeah? that they use a concept called baseline that they teach and have in their textbooks, which doesn't make any sense from a mathematical point of view because it's a circular definition, and they have all different views. What should this be? And I go back to this very arrogant mathematics physics approach in this field of medicine. Yeah? And so we said, okay, this is a clear problem in this field, so let's, but they didn't like to talk about this, so we did a trial where we recruited 14 or 15 of the top-notch obstetricians in Austria, Switzerland, and Germany, and they had to vote, or they had to make an assessment of CTGs according to the FIGO guidelines, and we had some 80 CTGs, 20 doublets, and the outcome was fantastic for us with an algorithm, very bad for the obstetricians. You know all these results because others have done this. So Monday morning, Wednesday evening, same CTG, same obstetrician, one time pathological, one time normal, and all that stuff. So that was all very good news, and then in retrospect, in a fantastically short period of time, in just 2 or 3 years, we received the CE mark for being able to market this in Europe. And then it started to become interesting because we realized you need to pay companies to give you the certificate. Yeah? So these are so-called notified bodies. They earn their money by reviewing you, and you have to pay them, and then at the end they give you this thing. So this is kind of a very, very deep conflict of interest for these patients in the field. Yeah? And in this case, when we had a software, yeah, that was new to the regulators. Software as a medical device, everyone here knows now, this is, of course, a concept that is well accepted. At that time, it was new to the people who should review us, and so we had to inform them, why is it, and what are the rules, and you had to pay them for doing the reviews, and it was all a bit crazy. Yeah? And I have to say, if you have the impression I get upset now in the next minutes, this is a very scaled-down version after having been talking to regulatory science experts who told me, Martin, calm down, it's not so bad, yeah, it will go away. So that is a warning, yeah? Because that was back in 2001. In 2004, we had the distribution contract. More and more clinics were using this. Nowadays, in Germany, more than 200 clinics are using this. In Bavaria, I think 2 or 3 clinics are not using it. In Munich, every clinic is using this. Yeah? Well, in 2006, we had completed already the first study in home monitoring, because again, with this arrogance, we had the impression, well, this makes a lot of sense. If you ask the women, of course, they want to stay home. If it can be done in a safe way, we received the CE mark very early on, but for some reason, and I will come to this, it didn't really take off. Yeah? Some clinics used it, but physicians did not take it up. Yeah? And then it went on. We had an introduction into Japan, and we had introduced more analysis modules. And then you see here in 2009, bing, there was this market approval for Japan. And then you see here, when I go to the more recent development, transition to MDR ongoing. Yeah? So that's the part that makes me a bit upset. And now you heard when I said bing, yeah? And this bing is like on a radar screen. Yeah? If a battleship or something bad is far away, you first hear a little bing. Yeah? And now I read, I don't want to make a mistake here, the bing that popped up in around 2010. And so the French government recommended on 23rd December 2011 that 30,000 women in France seek removal of breast implants made of a suspect silicone gel by the worldwide exporting PIP firm. Criminal trial was held in France in 2013, and Jean-Claude Mas was sent to prison for 4 years. Yeah? So that was the thing that happened at that time. And what then unfolded was a more or less crazy frenzy of lawmaking, because politicians wanted to make sure this should never ever happen again, that criminal medical device companies are doing this kind of nonsense. Yeah? And what then unfolded is, I think, in a couple of decades, people will go back and say, maybe this was the trigger event, similar to in pharma was the Contergan disaster and Grünenthal and the changes of the regulatory environment in the pharma business. Yeah? That a similar thing is now happening at least in Europe for medical devices.
Martin.
Okay, very good. That was the plan. Now, as I said, we are going to change gears, and I come to the news, and I inform you a little bit about the so-called extreme ends of regulatory science. So let's first have a quick look at what has happened in pharma after they introduced these measures to better control pharma. Now, from a regulatory science perspective, let's have a look at the publicly available information. I was asked by my colleague who used to work in Oxford, George Ebers, an MS expert, to display this information publicly because we had some trouble in the MS research. And here you see public information 2 years ago. What are the standard fines those pharma companies get and accept for having not their medical devices but their medical products on the market? So this is like $1 billion a year. Yeah? I mean, you may be surprised. Here, Purdue Pharma, there's a Netflix series. The drugs from this company, I mean, that's what's in the Netflix series, they kill more Americans per year than they've lost in the Vietnam War. Yeah? So one could argue something is not going well with this regulation here in the pharma business. Now, let's see if we can learn something for the development in the medical device area. Yeah? Now, medical device area, there are lots of publications here. It's just one example. Medical device makers drop products as European law sows chaos. Yeah? And that is the stuff that makes me upset, but you should not forget I'm pro or European. This will go away. There will be ways to deal with this. But at the moment, this is killing companies. This is killing innovation. It drives companies out of Europe. And this is really bad because it was not the intention of this law. The law is good. The way it's implemented is very, very bad. It needs all our attention, I think. Yeah? Otherwise, the water will get very hot. Well, there's also in obstetrics clearly some problem that the field has not managed, I think, to come up with very strong evidence that the kind of central station decision support beyond doubt is saving lives. Yeah? I mean, we are struggling, but this is there's not a single paper doing this. And now with this new regulation, that's the point, the manufacturers are forced to give very hard, strong evidence, not just that the product is very safe, but also that there is a clinical effectiveness that can be measured. And if you weigh the effectiveness of your product as compared to the risks, the benefits outweigh the risks. Yeah? So if you take this seriously, this is what this entire field here has not managed to get over decades, and now all of a sudden you as a manufacturer should come up with this. Yeah? Okay. I talked to lawyers, by the way, who are experienced in this field, Dutch lawyers, and they informed me about words I didn't know. One was FUBAR, and the other one was clusterfuck. Yeah? So that was their description about what's currently happening here, about this chaos of lawmaking. Okay, I have, I think, 2 more minutes, so I will take the liberty now to go to the question mark here, because I have hidden some information here. So again, I'm pro-European, and now the question is like if I can go to the next slide, maybe I do it over here. Yes. So we are working with regulatory science experts. There is one, Stephen Gilbert. He has a professorship for this new science in Dresden, and I offer myself as a patient. Yeah. And I support him that we observe what's happening to a group like us in this environment. Yeah? And we publish together, so learning from experience and finding the right balance in the governance of artificial intelligence and digital health technologies. So there are other initiatives trying to come up with journals that take pieces of scientific evidence that can be summarized here, and this includes biosignals and obstetrics. There are nice pictures that somehow show what's happening here on a society level. So if risky products are on the market, bad things happen, then the public reacts, yeah, then they change the regulation and make them tougher, then all of a sudden innovation stalls, yeah, and then it's too much, and then they release it. So that's the nice way to do this, yeah. But there are now, and I come back now to my, to the final slide where you should remember what I was saying at the beginning. So this describes now somehow my situation or situation of others. Had I known how hot this water is boiling, I would not have jumped in. Yeah? There are other frogs that should notice this. So if they have other business opportunities, they should know it's very hot. Yeah? And well, we're trying to reach now the temperature control with the support of others to bring it down. Yeah? It's still going to be very warm, but as I told you, I'm positive, so this is going to change in a way where you can still survive. Yeah? But at the moment, it's really very risky. And I hope you see these eyes of the frog. They are European, pro-European, and a bit concerned, but optimistic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
So thanks very much. Wonderful talk. Can you compare and contrast to the American regulatory environment, which we sometimes think of as a little bit too loose? So
yes,
there's a please.
Yeah. No, it's an excellent question. So maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the situation was reversed. Yeah. So Europe was seen to be a playground for medical device companies before they dare to go to the FDA. Yeah? Because FDA was considered to be the world's toughest system to control the quality and so on of medical devices. And nowadays, if I talk to the medical regulatory experts, it's the opposite. MDR is considered to be the world's toughest medical device regulation. And many companies say, well, I stay out of Europe, let's go to the US. So that has happened in between. Yeah? The good news is, if you manage to get this MDR and keep it, because this is not something you get and then it's easy, you get audits and audits and audits and unannounced audits, and you have to prepare a documentation called a clinical evaluation report. If you take it seriously, and we took maybe a naive academic approach with the story that I've initiated with these Cochrane reviews, well, then you have to take into account a changing landscape of documents in order to prepare formally correct documentation, and the number of documents, not the number of pages, you have to take into account, including guidelines, is more than 2,000. Yeah? So for a small, mid-sized company, you cannot do this. You have to hire expert groups that usually are populated by people who have been sitting on the other side. I was reminded this morning by that's the right term for this, like a turning door, or what is it? Revolving door, yeah? So first you sit on the notified body side, and then after 10 years you go on the other side and say, well, if you want to help, yeah, I know what they're thinking, yeah? And for example, pardon? Yes, yeah, of course, yeah. And so for example, some of them told us the way we've approached the notified bodies with this, well, honest academic spirit, we have a big red flag on our file, yeah?
Any other questions? Yes.
I can meet you halfway. So what about now that is combined also with the EU AI Act? So do you think that is even becoming more impossible mission to get into this field?
Well,
or
I'm
exaggerating.
I'm a patient here. I'm not an expert in this field. But the point is, there is no expert in the field. No one has long-term experience about the impact of MDR and the innovation, including AI and so on and so forth. So I can only listen to the many experts I'm surrounded. I mean, I've tried to get many people around me, yeah? And I'm just mirroring now what they're saying, that it's very hard to keep this with intelligence, HI algorithms. We call it human intelligence, yeah? Where you can understand, you can explain what you're doing, etc., etc. This is hard enough. AI, in the sense of using black boxes, where you have deep learning, where you have no understanding what's going on, it's okay for lowest risk products. As soon as you enter, we are 2B, so this is one below the highest risk. Yeah? stay out of it. Forget it. Yeah? And so we have been listed in review papers just recently from a group in Lausanne, current use of AI and ML in obstetrics, yeah, and our product is listed there, and I was about to write a letter to the editor. They should say, well, no, this company is not doing this. I'm sorry. Yeah? We have, of course, complex, I would say, intelligent algorithms, but I would not call them AI. Yeah? So we understand them, we've built them, we have validated them, and that may change in the future. And no one knows where it goes, but my personal patient experience here, knowing the discussions we have with the notified bodies, I will stay out of this. Maybe I've told this story this morning to give you a snapshot, yeah, of the kind of interactions you have. In an early check of the notified body about our documentation, they do a document completeness check. Yeah? You need to send in 15 documents and they count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15, and maybe then look, is the number of pages okay? Yeah? We receive feedback, you have overlooked a very severe risk in your stuff. What's going on? Well, there's a risk of it's a software, of viruses. Yeah? And we said, but this is not true. We have a huge documentation about cybersecurity and stuff. No, the risk they have seen is if now the hospital administrator gets a CD, a compact disc from us, yeah, and puts it into his hospital network, he will touch the CD, but the CD could have dangerous viruses like COVID, yeah? And he goes then to the obstetrics ward and is infecting then the midwives. I'm not kidding, yeah? And I was threatening them to tell this in the newspapers because it is so crazy. And this answer took 3 months, yeah? Where you pay them expedited review, yeah? Like, by the way, 97% of their customers, 97% of the customers pay for expedited review. What a nice business model. Yeah?
Thank you.